The stranger by the coffee shop sky over San Jose had forgotten the sun that morning. Clouds dragged themselves low across the rooftops, and a soft, steady rain painted the streets with silver. It was the kind of day that made people walk faster, shoulders hunched, heads down, racing to shelter. But inside a quiet, tucked-away coffee shop on the corner of Willow and 3rd, time moved slower. The soft clinking of mugs, the hum of the espresso machine, and the low murmur of conversation created a pocket of stillness. Sundar Pichai sat near the window, a plain cup of black coffee warming his hands. He had turned off his phone for the first time in weeks. Outside, he was a public figure, a powerful leader, the CEO of one of the largest technology companies on the planet. Inside this coffee shop, he was just a quiet man in a gray sweater, thinking about the past, watching the rain. This place reminded him of when he had first arrived in the United States, when he still carried coins in his pocket, and rode buses that didn't always stop where he expected. He liked the rawness of those days, the uncertainty. The hunger got as he sipped his coffee and let his thoughts drift. His gaze landed on something strange across the street. A beat-up blue Honda Civic was parked awkwardly along the curb. The wipers were stopped mid-motion, like they had been turned off in a rush. Inside the car, a woman sat in the driver's seat, motionless. She was curled toward the passenger side, her arms wrapped tightly around a small figure next to her, a child, in a faded pink blanket. Her head rested lightly against the window, eyes half closed, as if she hadn't slept in days. The window fogged from the inside, blurring her face, but Sundar could see the outline of her worry. Something about that image gripped him and refused to let go. He watched for minutes, maybe longer. He told himself it was just curiosity. People rested in their cars all the time. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Maybe she had just pulled over to escape the rain, but then the child stirred and sat up. The little girl was maybe 6 or 7. She rubbed her eyes and looked out the window, her small hands leaving clear smears on the glass. The woman turned to the child and pulled her. Close again, stroking her hair. There was tenderness in the motion, but it was heavy. It looked like a gesture born from desperation, not comfort. Sundar knew what he was seeing now. He had seen this kind of struggle before. Not in Silicon Valley, but back in Chennai. He had seen mothers giving the last bite of food to their children while pretending they weren't hungry. He leaned back in his chair, troubled. He didn't want to assume anything, but the woman didn't move for over an hour. No phone calls. No attempt to go inside. He noticed her glancing around nervously every few minutes, like she was afraid of being seen. And then she pulled a brown paper bag from the back seat and handed the child what looked like a sandwich. Not a fresh one. Not even a full one. Half of something wrapped in a napkin. The child took it eagerly, and Sundar looked away for a moment. Ashamed of his full stomach, an older man at the next table laughed loudly, breaking the quiet spell. Sundar turned back to the woman and found her eyes locked on him through the foggy window. Just for a second, and in that second, he saw something he had never seen in any boardroom or product launch. It was not just pain. It was the face of someone losing hope and trying to hide it for the sake of the child sitting next to her. He couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up slowly, unsure of what he was doing, unsure of why. He left his half-finished coffee on the table and walked to the counter. He bought 2 hot chocolates and a sandwich wrapped in foil. The barista asked if he wanted anything else, and he paused. "Can I get a blanket?" he asked, surprising even himself. The barista looked confused, but pointed him to a nearby pharmacy. Sundar nodded and stepped outside. The rain soaked him instantly. Cold drops slid down his neck and into his shirt. He didn't run. He walked slowly to the pharmacy next door, bought a thick gray blanket, and returned to the coffee shop corner. The car was still there. Same position, same stillness. He crossed the street with the small bag of food and the folded blanket in his arms. He hesitated just before knocking on the window. What if he was wrong? What if she pushed him away? What if she was proud, ashamed? He raised his hand anyway and tapped gently on the glass. The woman jumped. She turned quickly, eyes wide, with panic. Her hand flew to the door lock, but it was already engaged. Sundar took a small step back, holding the items where she could see them. He didn't say anything at first. He just let the rain speak for a few seconds. Then he spoke, his voice soft. "I'm not here to bother you," he said. "I just thought, maybe you and your daughter could use something warm." The woman stared at him for a long moment, not moving. Then, slowly, she cracked the window just enough to speak. Her voice was hoarse. "Tired. We're fine," she said, but she wasn't. And they weren't? Sundar could see it clearly now. The circles under her eyes, the cracked skin on her hands, the empty dashboard with no phone charger, no purse. She was surviving minute to minute. "I understand," Sundar said gently. "This is just some food and a blanket. No questions. No trouble." The woman looked down at her daughter, who was now wide awake and watching them both with silent curiosity. Finally, the woman opened the door just enough to reach out and take the bag. Her fingers brushed Sundar's hand. "They were freezing. Thank you," she whispered. Sundar nodded. "My name is Sundar," he said. She didn't answer. She just nodded, then shut the door quietly. He walked back across the street, back into the coffee shop. He stood by the window again, watching. The woman handed the sandwich to her daughter and wrapped the blanket tightly around her small shoulders. Her face softened. "Just a little." Sundar sat down again. But something inside him had shifted. It wasn't pity that filled him. It was something deeper, a sense of connection. A feeling he hadn't expected to find in the middle of a rainy Thursday. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he felt in his bones that this was not the end of their meeting. It was just the beginning. Outside, the rain began to slow. But inside Sundar's mind, a storm had just begun. A storm that would soon change not only the woman's life, but his own. Asterisk, the name she would not say. Rain had stopped by morning. But the streets still held the memory of it, wet sidewalks, dripping branches, and puddles that mirrored the cloudy sky. Sundar returned to the same coffee shop, unsure why. He told himself he just needed a break from the boardroom, a breath of something real. But in truth, the image of that woman and her child had settled in his mind like a question without an answer. He hadn't slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the way she clutched her daughter, the coldness in her hands, the silence in her voice. He took the same seat by the window, hoping he wouldn't find the car there. Maybe she had found shelter. Maybe someone had helped. But when he looked across the street, the blue Honda Civic was back. Not in the same spot, but close. This time, it was parked a little farther down, behind a dumpster, half hidden from the road. He knew what that meant. She had been told to move, or worse, someone had threatened her. The world didn't always make room for the ones who had nowhere to go. The girl wasn't in the car. Sundar leaned forward, scanning the sidewalk. And then he saw her small, delicate, wearing the same faded pink jacket, walking slowly with a school backpack that looked far too big for her shoulders. She walked alone, head down, toward a bus stop. It wasn't near any school. The bus schedule on the pole was old and peeling. He watched her climb onto the bus, using both hands to hoist herself up. She didn't look back. Sundar felt something tighten in his chest. It was an old feeling, one he hadn't let himself feel. In years, it was the feeling of helplessness, but this time, he had power. And he knew it. He stood up, walked out into the cool morning, and crossed the street. The Civic's windows were down slightly to let the car breathe. As he approached, the woman sat up straighter. She looked tired, more than before. But her eyes were sharp now, guarded. "You again?" she said softly. Sundar stopped a few steps away, careful not to startle her. "I saw your daughter," he said. She looked brave. The woman looked away. "She is," she said, almost to herself. "Does she go to school around here?" He asked. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Why do you care?" Sundar paused. It was a fair question, because I was raised by a mother who skipped meals to feed me, he said. Because I know what it means to go without, and because I Can't just walk away from what I saw yesterday. The woman looked at him then. Really looked. Her eyes softened. Just a little. What's your name? He asked. She hesitated. Her lips parted, then closed again. The silence stretched. I don't need to know everything, he added quickly. Just enough to know who I'm helping. Finally, she said, Maya. He could tell it wasn't the whole truth. It might not even be her real name, but it was something Maya, he repeated gently. My name is Sundar. She nodded, then looked at the bag he was holding. I brought some breakfast, he said. For both of you. She opened the door, just enough to take it. Her hands weren't shaking today, but they were still cold. Thank you, she said again. Then, after a pause, you don't have to do this. I know, he replied. But I want to. He stood there for a few more seconds, then said, if there's anything you need, I mean it. I'm here every morning. She didn't respond, just closed the door gently and turned to the bag, back inside the coffee shop. Sundar sat by the window again, watching the way Maya unwrapped the food and carefully put half aside. She was saving it, not just for her daughter, but for later, maybe for tonight or tomorrow. It hit him hard. The way she rationed kindness like it might run out, the next few days became a quiet rhythm. Sundar arrived each morning, sometimes with food, sometimes with books for the little girl, whose name he learned was Lila. Maya never asked for anything. She never volunteered stories. But she never refused help either. They spoke in short, careful sentences. It was a slow dance of trust. Then, one day, Maya didn't show up. The Civic was gone. Sundar sat longer than usual. He checked the parking spots, walked down the block, even peeked into the nearby alley. Nothing. He felt a strange panic rise. In him, he didn't know how to contact her. Didn't even know her real name. And yet, he felt responsible. Deeply, unshakably responsible. He called his assistant and canceled his morning meetings. Told her he needed the day. He drove around the neighborhood for hours, checking side streets and quiet corners. Every car that looked remotely like hers made his heart skip. But it wasn't until late afternoon that he found the blue Civic parked. Behind an abandoned grocery store on the far edge of town, the windows were up. The car looked empty. He knocked. A moment passed. Then Maya appeared, startled, her face pale, her eyes red. Maya, Sundar said softly. Are you okay? She didn't speak, just looked at him, defeated. What happened? Maya opened the door slowly. Inside, Lila was asleep in the back seat, curled like a kitten. The blanket was pulled up to her chin. Someone broke into the car last night, Maya said. They took my bag, Lila's things. Her school books, everything. Her voice cracked. She looked down. I didn't know where else to go. Sundar stood there, heart pounding. This wasn't something he could walk away from anymore. It had gone beyond kindness, beyond generosity. He crouched down so they were eye level. Come with me, he said quietly. Please. Maya shook her head. I can't. I don't know you. Not really. You don't have to trust me completely, he said. Just trust that I won't let you fall. She didn't answer. Her silence stretched so long that it began to feel like a goodbye. Then, slowly, painfully, she nodded. Double quotes just for the night. She whispered. Sundar opened the passenger door and helped gather what little they had. Lila stirred but didn't wake. Sundar wrapped her in a blanket and lifted her gently into his car. Maya followed, her steps slow, unsure. As Sundar pulled away from the dark parking lot. He felt something shift in the world, something quiet. But real. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, someone would sleep indoors. Astra's shelter is not safe. Silence in the car was thick, broken only by the low hum of the engine and the occasional sigh from the back seat where Lila slept, curled tightly like she hadn't truly rested in weeks. Sundar drove carefully, glancing in the rearview mirror every few seconds, checking that she was still sleeping, that she was still okay. Maya sat in the front seat, hands folded in her lap, her body stiff. almost as if she were bracing for something, not fear exactly, but something deeper, older. She had agreed to come with him, but her eyes never stopped scanning the streets. Not like someone on the run, but like someone who had learned long ago that safety was temporary. They drove through quiet neighborhoods and wide roads lined with trees that still dripped from the rain. It was nearly dark by the time they pulled into the private entrance of Sundar's guest house, behind hedges tall enough to hide the world. The space was modest compared to the main house, but warm. It had a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a fireplace that Sundar had never once used. When he opened the door and turned on the lights, Mia paused at the threshold. Her eyes darted around the room, unsure, like she didn't know if she was allowed to step inside. "You can stay." "Here," Sundar said gently. "As long as you need. No one will bother you. No cameras. No press. No expectations." Maya looked at him, unsure whether to believe it. But then she stepped inside, her arms wrapped around herself, and walked over to the couch. She didn't? Sik just stood there, watching Lila as Sundar carried her in and gently laid her down on the soft cushions. Lila stirred, eyes fluttering open, and for a moment, confusion washed over her face. Then she saw her mother, and the fear melted into something that looked like peace. "Is this ... where we live now?" she asked sleepily. Maya knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "Just for tonight," she whispered. But they both knew the truth. It wouldn't just be tonight. Nothing about the way Maya looked at Sundar told him this was temporary. She wanted it to be, needed it to be, but there was nowhere else to go. Not anymore. Later, after Lila had fallen asleep again in the smaller of the 2 bedrooms, Sundar made tea. He didn't say much. Neither did Maya. They sat at the small dining table, 2 cups between them, steam curling into the space between their silences. "I don't need charity," she said quietly. "This isn't charity," he replied. "Then, what is it?" He took a long breath before answering. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I know I've been given a lot in my life, and I never want to be the kind of man who forgets that." Maya looked down at her tea, her fingers wrapped tight around the mug. She wasn't used to this gentleness with no strings. "People always want something," she murmured. "They offer help, but it comes with a price." "Not this time," Sundar said. But she didn't thank him. Because she didn't believe it yet. Not fully. And Sundar didn't blame her. They both sat in the quiet, listening to the rain starting again outside. When Sundar left that night, blocking the door gently behind him, he didn't know what would happen the next day. He just knew he wanted to keep showing up, not as a savior, but as a witness. Someone who stayed. Someone who saw her. Over the next week, the rhythm changed. Sundar returned each morning before heading into the office, sometimes bringing breakfast, sometimes just sitting on the porch to talk. Maya remained cautious, but she began to soften, like a wound that had started to scab over. She still didn't share much, no real details about her past, no stories about Lila's father, no family names. But her silence was no longer a wall. It was a shield, thin and trembling. Lila, on the other hand, opened quickly. She would run to the door when Sundar arrived, her voice full of excitement, her eyes bright. She loved to draw, and soon the guest house walls were covered in her artwork, crayon suns and paper stick figures, drawings of dogs and stars, and a house that looked suspiciously like the one she was now living in. "Do you like being a boss?" she asked one morning as she ate cereal on the porch. Sundar chuckled. "Sometimes," he said. "But I like learning more than bossing. Do you learn from my mom?" That question made him pause. "Yes," he said, "every day." Maya heard it from the window but didn't say a word. She just turned away, hiding the strange look that crossed her face. Later that night, Sundar stayed a little longer. The fireplace crackled softly, and for the first time, Maya sat with him without tension in her shoulders. "How did you get here?" she asked. "You mean America?" She nodded. Double quotes. "I came with a scholarship. Barely had money for a coat when I landed." Everything felt so big and so far from home. She looked at him, quiet. "And now?" she asked. "Do you still feel far from home?" He thought about it. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But lately, I've started to believe home isn't a place. It's the people you show up for. Maya looked away, swallowing hard. What about you? He asked gently. She didn't answer. The silence stretched long again, filled only by the soft snapping of the fire. Can I tell you something? She said finally. He nodded. When Lila was born, we had a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it had light. A balcony. She had her own room. I used to sing her to sleep every night. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. And then, one day it was gone. Just like that, I lost my job. And my partner, he disappeared when he found out I was pregnant again. I had nowhere to go. Nothing to sell. And everyone I thought would help vanished. She wiped her eyes, angry with herself for crying. I kept thinking, I can get through this. Just one more day. But one more day turned into a year. And now, ... this is what's left. Sundar didn't say anything. He knew words weren't what she needed. I didn't want her to see me like this. Maya whispered. Not like this. Sundar's voice was low, steady. She doesn't see what you think she sees. She sees strength. She sees someone who never gave up. Maya laughed softly, bitterly. You think that's enough? Sometimes, Sundar said. It's everything. She looked at him, and for the first time, her defenses slipped completely. Not because she trusted him fully. Not yet, but because she was exhausted from carrying it alone. I don't know how to start again. She whispered. He reached across the table, not to touch her, but to place a single envelope on the wood between them. This is a start, he said. Inside was the first month's rent for a small apartment, already arranged. The deposit paid, no strings, just a key. Maya stared at it, unmoving. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice breaking. Because I believe in what comes after pain, Sundar said. And I believe you haven't even begun the best part of your story yet. Maya didn't pick up the envelope. She just sat there, tears falling silently. Her breath shaking. For the first time in a long time, she was beginning to believe it too. But outside, in the darkness beyond the hedges, a shadow moved quietly along the street. Someone was watching, and everything was about to change. Asterisk. The shadow she feared the next morning arrived with a heavy gray sky, the kind that pressed down on the city like a warning. Sundar woke earlier than usual, a sense of unease creeping into his chest before his feet even touched the floor. He couldn't explain it. It wasn't the usual stress from boardrooms or business decisions. This was different, something quieter, something colder. He arrived at the guest house before sunrise. The porch light was still on, casting a soft glow over the gravel path. Everything looked normal from the outside, but Sundar noticed the smallest detail. A paper cup near the driveway, tipped over, still wet from rain that had fallen hours ago. It hadn't been there yesterday, and Maya was always careful. She never left anything outside, not trash, not evidence. He knocked gently, not wanting to startle anyone. A moment passed. Then another. Just when he was about to knock again, the door opened slowly. Maya stood there, her eyes red, a long sweater wrapped tightly around her. She looked smaller somehow, like she hadn't slept at all. Is everything okay? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes flicked past him, scanning the trees, the road behind his car, as if someone might be standing there. Can I come in? He asked softly. She stepped aside without a word. Inside, the house was quiet. Lila was still sleeping on the couch, a book resting on her chest, her face peaceful. But Maya's hands were shaking. She poured a cup of tea and sat at the table, not touching it. He found us, she said, her voice barely more than a breath. Sundar's chest tightened. Who? She looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw a fear that went deeper than poverty, deeper than exhaustion. This was fear with a memory. Fear that had learned to hide, to run, to stay quiet. Her father? The words sat heavy. In the air. He's been looking for us, she whispered. And somehow, ... he found us. Did he come here? Sundar asked, voice low, steady. No, not yet. But I saw him yesterday, on the street. Just standing there, across from the park where I take Lila sometimes. He didn't say anything. Didn't move, but he saw me. and I know what that means. Sundar leaned forward. Does he have any legal custody? Maya shook her head. No, but he doesn't care about that. He's not the kind of man who asks permission. Her hands gripped the mug tightly now, white knuckles straining. He wasn't just cruel. He was dangerous. Lila doesn't remember it. She was too young, but I do. I remember everything. And I can't go back to that. I won't. Sundar felt the weight of her words settle into his bones. This was no longer about shelter or food or second chances. This was about safety. Real safety. Then we'll protect you, he said. You're not alone anymore? Maya looked at him like she wanted to believe it, but didn't know how. You don't understand, she said. Men like him don't care about rules. They don't stop because you ask them to. They stop because you disappear. And I've been running so long, I don't know how to stop. Sundar stood up and reached for his phone. Then it's time to stop running, he said. It's time to fight back with the law, with people who actually care. I'll call someone I trust. We'll get a lawyer. We'll get protection orders. You don't have to do this in the dark. Maya didn't respond. Not at first. Then she whispered, what if it makes things worse? Sundar crouched beside her chair so they were eye level. You've already lived through worse, he said. Now it's time to live through better. Maya closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek later that afternoon. After calls had been made and the first steps toward legal protection had begun, Sundar sat in his office, staring out at the city skyline. His mind wasn't on quarterly reports or product launches. It was on Maya, on Lila, on how many women like them existed in shadows, unseen, unheard, surviving while the world rushed past them. He called his head of security and gave specific instructions. Unmarked vehicles would patrol the area around the guest house. Cameras would be installed discreetly. Nothing invasive, just safe. And most importantly, nothing that would make Maya feel trapped. He knew trust was fragile. But protection didn't have to feel like a prison. That night, Sundar returned with a small box inside. It was a phone, simple, prepaid, untraceable. He placed it on the table in front of Maya. Just in case, he said. She looked at it, then up at him. What if he doesn't stop? Sundar's voice was quiet. Then we don't stop either. That night, after Sundar left, Maya stayed awake. Not with fear this time, but with thought. She sat beside Layla's bed, watching her daughter breathe, watching the way her chest rose and fell with ease. She hadn't had that in years. Sleep without tension. A roof without threats. It had always felt like something other people had. But now, now it was here. And it was fragile. And real she thought about Sundar. About the way he showed up without expecting anything. About the way he listened, really listened. It scared her more than anything else. Because if she started to believe in it, really believe, then losing it would hurt more than anything she'd ever lost in the silence of the guest house. Maya made a decision. Not to run. Not yet. But outside, under the blackness of the trees near the road, a man stood quietly, watching the lights in the house. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply waited. Asterisk the day the shadow stepped forward. The following days moved with quiet tension. The kind of stillness that exists in the moments before a storm breaks open the sky. Inside the guest house, everything looked normal. Breakfast with Lila at the kitchen table, soft music playing in the background, laundry folded neatly into small drawers, but beneath the surface, Maya's every move was laced with caution. Each time a car slowed on the road, her breath paused. Each knock at the door made her hands twitch. Even in sleep, her body curled tight, as if she was still hiding from something no lock could keep out. Sundar came each morning, never unannounced, never loud. He brought small gifts for Lila, a book about stars, a box of colored pencils, and every time he handed something over, it wasn't the gift that mattered. It was the steadiness in his presence. Maya never asked him to stay, but she never asked him to leave either. She didn't say much, but he noticed the small changes. The way she sat a little straighter, the way she opened the windows again, the way she watched Lila with something new in her eyes. Not fear, not yet, but something close to hope. On the 5th morning since she had seen her ex, Sundar arrived with news. We've secured a restraining order, he said gently as they sat on the porch. He's officially not allowed within 200 feet of you or Lila. Maya didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee mug. Paper doesn't stop fists, she whispered. Sundar didn't argue. He knew better, but it puts the law on your side, he said. And it means you don't have to hide anymore. She looked at him then, tired but sharp. You think the law scares a man like him? No, he said honestly. But it gives us power. And more importantly, it gives you options. He didn't say what he really meant. That power was what she had never had before. That this time, someone with a voice, with reach, was standing behind her. Not as a shield, but as support. Later that day, Sundar had to attend a major company event. He hesitated before leaving, but Maya insisted she would be fine. Lila had school, and she had groceries to pick up. It was time, she said, to start moving through the world again. He nodded. But before he left, he gave her a simple reminder. Use the phone. Call me anytime. Anything happens, even the smallest thing, you don't handle it alone. She nodded, the phone already in her sweater pocket. The day passed in slow hours. Lila went to school with a new coat that Sundar's assistant had picked out. Maya cleaned the kitchen, played music she hadn't listened to in years, and for a few fleeting hours the world felt almost normal. She even allowed herself a walk down the block to the corner store, wearing sunglasses and a hood, still cautious, but standing tall. But that evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses and the street lamps clicked on one by one, Maya's world changed again. It started with a knock. Not loud, not frantic. Just 3 slow, heavy knocks on the door. She froze in the kitchen, heart thudding in her ears. She wasn't expecting anyone. Sundar never knocked like that. She reached for the phone in her pocket, her thumb trembling over the screen. Another knock came. Slower this time. Almost deliberate. Lila peeked around the hallway. Mom, she whispered. Maya pressed a finger to her lips, motioning her to stay hidden. She stepped quietly to the window beside the door and looked through the curtains. He was there. Not a memory, not a shadow. Flesh and bone. He hadn't changed much. Same lean frame, same eyes too sharp for their own good. He stood with hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed like he had every right to be there. Like he was coming home. Maya stumbled back, breathing hard. She called Sundar. He answered on the first ring. He's here, she whispered, panic rising. Sundar's voice went calm immediately. Lock the door. Don't speak to him. I'm sending security now. I'm coming too. He saw me, she said. He knows we're here. Maya, Sundar said gently. He doesn't get to win. Not this time. Outside, the man knocked again. This time he spoke. Maya, he called, voice casual. I just want to talk. No trouble. Maya didn't move. Lila crawled into her lap, shaking. They waited. Asterisk. 10 minutes later, Sundar's head of security arrived, 2 plainclothes professionals, calm but firm. The man at the door didn't argue, didn't fight. He just smiled, nodded, and walked away like nothing mattered, but everything mattered. Police took a statement. The restraining order had technically already been violated. They logged it, promised a patrol car would circle every hour, but Sundar knew how the system worked. It reacted only after something happened. It didn't always prevent. He arrived as the last officer was leaving. Maya opened the door before he knocked. She didn't speak. She just looked at him with eyes full of fear and rage and shame. You did everything right, he said, voice steady. He doesn't care about right, she whispered. He just wants control. Then we take it back. Sundar replied. Maya sat down, holding Lila close. Sundar paced the room once, then stopped near the fireplace. You don't have to stay here anymore, he said. We can move you. New place. New name. I can make it happen. Maya looked up, startled. You'd do that? I'd do anything to keep you and Lila safe. For the first time, her guard cracked. Completely? Why? She asked. You don't even know me. Not really. Sundar sat down across from her. His voice was soft, but every word landed like an anchor. I know what it feels like to be small, to be ignored, to need help and be too proud or too scared to ask. I know what it means to be given a chance when you think no one sees you. He paused, and I know this if the world had more people like you. People who keep going no matter how heavy life gets, it would be a better place. Maya's eyes filled, not with pain this time. With something else, recognition. For the first time, she believed he wasn't going anywhere. But outside. In the dark, something still lingered. The man wasn't finished. And soon the final confrontation would come, not in silence, not in shadows, but in a moment that would force everyone to face the truth. The hour before sunrise that night had settled over the guest house like a heavy blanket, thick with silence, yet humming underneath with the weight of everything unspoken. Inside, Mia sat by the window, her eyes tracing the faint shimmer of streetlight on the gravel path. She hadn't slept, not in any true sense. Even when her body rested, her mind kept running, looping through memories she had spent years trying to forget. Shouts in the dark, slammed doors. This pounding not just walls, but the edges of her worth. Lila slept peacefully in the room across the hall. Sundar had stayed late that evening, sitting with them on the couch, telling Lila a quiet story about stars and satellites and how everything in space, even the loneliest things, are always orbiting something. Lila had fallen asleep smiling, and Maya had almost smiled too. Almost. But as the hour turned past midnight, Maya felt the shift. Not outside, inside. Her body was tense, alert, as if her instincts had picked up something her senses couldn't name. She stood, walked to the front door, and checked the locks for the 5th time. Everything was secure, but it didn't feel secure. She stepped onto the porch, her sweater pulled tight around her. The wind was colder tonight, whispering through the trees in slow, circling currents. She looked toward the road. Empty. Still. But her stomach twisted. And then movement. A shape in the dark, just beyond the edge of the property line. Slow. Deliberate. He was back. Before she could move. Before she could even breathe properly, the shape came closer, stepping into the glow of the porch light. It was the man who once promised her forever and delivered only fear. His hands were empty, but Maya knew what he carried. Control. Manipulation. The belief that she still belonged to him. She backed into the house, locked the door, and grabbed the phone Sundar had given her. He answered on the first ring. He's here again, she said, closer this time. Stay inside, Sundar said firmly. I'm coming. Don't open the door for anyone but me. But before she could reply, a knock. Slow. Hard. Deliberate. She flinched. Maya, the man called. I just want to talk. You can't keep hiding. His voice was different now. Not casual, not calm. It was filled with venom hidden behind a thin layer of charm. Come outside, he said. Let's just talk like we used to. Maya pressed her back to the wall, trying to steady her breathing. You don't have to do this, she whispered to herself. Lila stirred in the other room. Maya rushed to her, lifted her gently, and carried her into the guest house bathroom. She locked the door behind them and sat on the floor, cradling her daughter, who looked up, confused and afraid. Mommy? She whispered. Maya kissed her forehead. We're okay. Just stay with me. Outside, the knocking grew louder. More urgent. Then a voice again shouting now. Open the damn door, Maya. I know you're in there. Mia pressed the phone to her ear again. Where are you? She whispered. Sundar single quotes S voice came back steady, but tight. 2 minutes away. Just hold on. But the man wasn't waiting. He started banging on the door with both fists, now screaming, rage spilling through every word. You think you can run from me? You think this changes anything? Then a loud crash. A shoulder against the door. Maya held Lila tighter. Then silence. A moment. Past. Then the sound of tires. Footsteps. A second voice. Sundar. Double quotes. Step away from the house. His voice was clear, sharp, filled with power that didn't need volume. Who the hell are you? The man yelled back. Someone who's not afraid of you, Sundar said. Maya crept to the edge of the window, watching through the curtains. Sundar stood at the bottom of the steps, tall and unshaken. Behind him, two security guards moved in silently, positioning themselves between the man and the door. You violated a restraining order, Sundar continued, and you've scared a child. You're done? The man laughed, but it was hollow. You think you can buy your way into their lives? He spat. You don't even know her. Sundar took one step closer. I know enough. I know she's strong. And I know she's not yours to break anymore. The man lunged, but before he could reach Sundar, the guards restrained him. Police sirens approached in the distance, growing louder. Maya watched, frozen, as the man thrashed and cursed. But there was no power in his words now. No terror, just noise. He was taken away moments later, handcuffed, shoved into the back of a patrol car. Sundar didn't look away until the vehicle disappeared around the bend. Only then did he walk slowly up the porch steps. Maya opened the door. She didn't speak. She just stood there, trembling, her daughter in her arms. Sundar looked at her, his eyes soft. It's over, he said. She stepped forward, and for the first time, let herself lean into someone else, into safety. Not a house, not a plane. Person. Sundar held her carefully, like something precious. Not fragile. Weeks passed. The guest house emptied slowly, not of people, but of fear. Lila laughed more often. Maya began to speak about the future, not in whispers, but in full sentences. Sundar found himself visiting less out of duty and more out of want. He'd begun to look forward to Lila's drawings, to Mia's quiet smiles, to the way the air felt lighter when they were near. Then, one morning, Maya handed Sundar an envelope. Inside was a note and a small silver key. The apartment, she said. We're moving in today. Sundar looked up, surprised. You're sure? She nodded. It's time. You don't have to rush. I'm not running, she said. Not anymore. I want to build something. Not just hide inside it. He smiled, proud. Then let me help you move. Maya smiled too. You already did. They stood in silence, the weight of the moment resting between them, like something sacred. Will we still see you? Lila asked. Sundar crouched beside her. As long as you want me to, he said. Lila nodded firmly. Forever then? Maya laughed softly, covering her mouth. As they packed up the last few things and drove toward the small apartment Sundar had helped find. The morning sun finally broke through the clouds, spilling gold over the rooftops. And in that light, Maya was no longer a woman running. She was a woman rising. And this was only the beginning. Asterisk.